Well, good morning and welcome to Full Potential Fridays. My name is Heidi Dening, and for the next 10 minutes, we are going to give you a shot of inspiration and practical strategies to empower you and your team. I'm here with my very talented co-host, Nina Mapson Bone. Good morning, Nina. What are we focusing on today?
Good morning, Heidi. It's so lovely to be here. And today we're talking about one of my favourite topics in the world. I like to just call it teamwork makes the dream work. I know that's a bit, cheesy. I think the official name is communication and conversation keys, which sounds much more professional. But really the key thing about it, Heidi, is that at the heart of almost all problems in teams, not all, but almost all problems in teams, I believe, is miscommunication. Most people don't wake up in the morning and think to themselves, my entire goal today is going to be to annoy the bejesus out of my colleagues. That's not how they start their day. That's not what they intend to do, but it happens, right? And most of the problems we see in teams come from that kind of miscommunication. We touched on it a bit a few weeks ago when we talked about strengths and understanding different people's strengths, and it sort of aligns with that. So communication is the discussion for today. Heidi, do you agree? Do you think that's a key part?
It is such a key part, and I think once, like both of us, having worked with leaders across many organisations, the ones that we see really reaching their full potential are ones that have great communication skills. And I'd love to know from everybody who's listening, who do you know who is a great communicator? But before you tag them, I don't want you to tag somebody who's in your organisation right now, because I don't want you to be like brown nosing just somebody there, because that's going to be of benefit to you. I'd love you to tag someone in your past organisations or workplaces or industries, maybe a different industry, where you've had a leader or a colleague who has been a great communicator, and you know that has made a real difference to your work culture and the environment that you have to turn up to every day. So while that's happening, Nina, I would love to hear what the very first tip is about this whole communication piece that you've got for us.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Heidi. And I love Warwick's comment there. You're quite right, Warwick, this idea that you can have different opinions and still be right. I love the saying, debate the idea, not the person, so it's a really important thing. So 3 tips we're going to share with you today. And the first one, which is, I think, a really crucial one, is that it's essential that you master the art of difficult conversations. And when I say you as the leader, but also as the leader, you need to try and encourage your teams to learn how to master the art of difficult conversations, because it's that conversation piece that makes the real difference. It's the ability to acknowledge when there is a tension or there is a problem, and knowing how to go about solving that problem and not shying away from it. A lot of us avoid conflict and we try and shy away from it, and we don't want to have the conversation, but nothing was ever made better by avoiding the issue. In the long run, it might be okay for a little while, but somewhere down the line, in the long run, it will explode. And it's much better to to kind of deal with a little pebble in the shoe before it becomes a big blister on your foot, is the way I like to think of it. How do you approach difficult conversations, Heidi?
Well, look, I can't, this whole thing just reminds me of the movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow. I don't know if you remember that, but right at the beginning, there's this scene where she's racing for the train, and the first scenario is she gets on before the doors slide close, hence the name of the movie. But what that does, it gets her home early. She finds her husband in bed with somebody else, and the movie tracks this whole unfolding of her life because of that moment. And then it tracks the other moment where the doors close before she gets on. So she misses seeing that and how her life unfolds that way. Now, I know it seems kind of dramatic, but to me, difficult conversations can be that sliding door moment. They can, depending how you respond to them, depending how the other person hears it, can either go in a really good way or it can go in a really bad way. So I think, I approach them with, this could be a sliding door moment for me. I have to manage it very carefully.
I love that, Heidi. And actually, you've touched on the point that I'm going to come to in point 2, which is fabulous. But I just want to recognize all the great comments. I'm loving the people are recognizing, the people that they've worked with in the past that are good communicators, but also, recognizing that actually you do need to address these issues. And Rebecca Robinson had said that the stress is in the build up, and actually there's often relief when you have the conversation, which is so true. So I love that. And I think this comes on to point 2 nicely, Heidi, which is you actually need to learn how to have conversations that lead to a positive outcome. And when we train on this, when we run workshops on this, there's actually a 4-step agenda that we teach people to follow. And I always joke with everybody and say that, it's great for any difficult conversation. It works just as well as an argument with your partner as it does with an employee, so it's a really good technique that we use. But the key in it, and we don't have time today to get into the detail, but the key of it is really asking questions, asking genuine questions, and genuinely listening before you jump in with any kind of message of your own. So you really need to listen and adapt your message. Too many people, when they're trying to communicate, go straight in with what they want to say to get their point across. And if they are asking questions, they're jumping in quickly with their perspective. And everything is better when you actually take the time to genuinely understand the other person's perspective. And you find that the solutions you come to tend to be better solutions as a result, because you're actually taking on board different perspectives. What's your experience with Heidi?
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, that listening piece is just so crucial. I mean, I love that, Warwick said a willingness to have tough conversations shows the entire team what behaviours will and won't be tolerated. I mean, that is just such gold, because it is so true. But I think, as we are all humans, and teams are made up of humans, I know that, Nina, when we're talking about our full potential program to leaders about how their teams can, reach their full potential, well, that definition in itself is very different for everybody. So unless we unpack how that particular expression is relevant to them and their teams, how we can understand what challenges they're having and what opportunities they're having, then the conversation is just not going to go anywhere, because we're kind of both talking about 2 different things. So it's really that piece that you talked about of really listening, really being present and listening and asking the right questions. Yeah,
exactly right. And I love, thank you, Mandy, for being so honest, who's written on the comments. I have to stop myself jumping in at times. That's my problem too, Mandy. You've probably noticed I have to stop myself from jumping in and interrupting Heidi all the time. And it's hard. Some of us want to speak first. Some of us don't want to speak at all. And it's just understanding and recognizing where you are on that spectrum and just trying to, adapt it. And I think the third point, which is actually quite a separate point that I do want to talk about, is that while those 2 first points really help for 80-90% of issues in a team, there are a small proportion of times when that doesn't work. And that's when you're dealing with somebody that has one of the kind of 4 personality types that might be problematic. So the 4 that we talk about in the training, they're the passive aggressives, the high ego behaviors, the narcissists, and the psychopaths, and there's quite clinical definitions of some of these things. But if you genuinely have somebody like that in your team, it's quite a different approach that you need to take. And obviously don't tag anyone, because that wouldn't be appropriate, but it would be great to know, for any of our audience listening, if you've had some experience with working with some of those difficult personalities, because it's just good to know that you're not alone. I think you'd be surprised how many people actually have had to work with some of those people at different times, and they all require slightly different ways of dealing with them. But as a leader, it's really important to know and understand what those ways are, so that you can address those issues differently and quickly when you need to. So, Heidi, I know that that's something that you have a view on.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've certainly worked with people with poor behaviour that I won't say out loud, of course, but I'd love to know from, as you've said, from others if they've experienced that, because I think we all have, right? And to know that we're not alone is a really important thing. But I think what we have to recognise as leaders is that the narcissist and the psychos, that they're really not people you can develop. It's nearly impossible to develop them. So you've just kind of got to come to that and not keep pushing your head against a brick wall. But there is opportunity, of course, with those with high egos and the passive aggressives, but you've really got to keep a very watchful eye and keep them on a short leash, just to make sure, because you want to see that they are responding to the development work that you're doing with them. And if they're not, that's when we need to manage people out effectively, because what we don't want when we come back to that old but such relevant saying that one bad apple can rot the whole cart, and one bad team member can rot the culture that you have worked so hard to make sure is right for your organization. And you do never, no matter how smart they are, no matter how intelligent they are, no matter how many great sales they'll bring, if they are rotting the culture of your organization, sorry, you've got to manage them out. Yeah,
quite right. And I think that's the key. And Joe here has talked about the the massive ego, and Tula previously was talking about the impact on culture. As a leader, your people want to know that you're taking action in these situations, and that's that's also your responsibility to do. So I couldn't agree more. So Heidi, over to you to wrap up us and tell us what we've got on next week.
Yeah, look, next week we're going to be talking about the different kinds of courage that you can lead with within your teams. But between now and then, we would love for you to see if your team is reaching their full potential. You can go to this URL, take the online quiz, and see any of the previous episodes that Nina and I have done together. So until then, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Nina, for all your brilliance as usual. And
we will see you, Heidi. Thank you.
We will see you all same place, same time, 9 a.m. next week here on LinkedIn.
Bye.